What happens when a comically absurd cat memorial turns into a neighborhood rock concert, challenging one woman's entitlement and igniting an unexpected rebellion? Buckle up for the chaos. Before we begin today's insane story, show some love if you've ever survived a wild Karen meltdown. Drop a like and let me know your craziest Karen run-in you've had down in the comments. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another jaw-dropping showdown. With Karen strumming her inflatable guitar like it was the most precious artifact of the universe, I could hardly believe my eyes. There she was, the former queen of disdain, now somehow embodying the spirit of rock and roll, albeit with a flair of her own unique bewilderment. I watched as she threw her head back, a slight tremor of confidence sparking in her commands. "This song's called I Brought My Cat to the Dog Park," she shouted, and oh, the absurdity of it. I was nearly convulsed with laughter as she launched into an impromptu ballad about the evils lurking behind dog parks, painting graphic images of feline rebellions in a dog-eat-dog world. The scene was utterly ludicrous, and yet something about it felt extraordinary in its own right. We were all in this mess together, our laughter gluing the barriers into mere whispers of the past. Jake, in his infinite wisdom, began to beatbox to bolster Karen's quirky tune, and I jumped into the mix with a delightfully off-key harmony, urging others to join in. Soon enough, neighbors were mimicking air guitars, join in Karen's vocal theatrics, and chortling as if we were enchanted by some strangely intoxicating spell. The camaraderie swelled as if a giant balloon had been inflated among our once clashing personalities, intermingling and mingling until we'd lost the very edges of our previous identities. Best of all was hearing Mr. Thompson, the perpetually stoic lawn maven, chuckling earnestly. This was a man who hadn't laughed at anything other than his own lawn mowing strategy for years. It was a collective magic that was half mishap and half jubilant reality, all simmering together on that beautiful summer night. As dusk set in deeper, our makeshift concert stage hummed with energy, a buzzing microcosm of chaos bursting with laughter, echoing through our quiet neighborhood. Boundaries that had once been rigidly observant of Karen's elitist whims melted away like ice cream in the sun, leaving behind warm puddles of vibrant personality. Those glassy-eyed wine snobs who once deemed the ground beneath our feet unworthy were now embroiled in impromptu dance-offs, ridiculously gyrating like they were auditioning for a comedy sitcom. I couldn't help but glance over at Karen periodically, sparkling eyes full of life. Life I was convinced I was witnessing for the very first time in her. The absurdity was weaving us into a canvas of connection, a fierce reminder of what it meant to embrace the wild and unpredictable heartbeat of existence. But as all wild parties tend to go, the initial surge of exhilaration slowly began to ebb, and with it, our energy found a new rhythm. As the night wore on, the crowd moved from boisterous rock anthems to soulful acoustic strumming led by none other than Karen herself. The inflatable guitar had mysteriously vanished from her grasp, replaced with a good old-fashioned six-stringed butte, purportedly left by one of my neighbors after our last outdoor barbecue. "Let's turn this into a jam session, folks," she beamed. And just like that, Karen from the HOA was encouraging everyone to spill their secrets as they shared mellow songs under the canopy of stars. Jake and I exchanged euphoric glances as we reveled in this unexpected camaraderie that had blossomed from chaos, all nourished by the raucous spirit of rock and roll. Thoughts swirled in my head. Who knew that the neighborhood's social structure could be so easily collapsed by a wave of raucous laughter and inflatable guitars? It felt almost absurdly poetic, the way we had brought together a crew of quirky characters from the fringes of our neighborhood into a singular, delightful mess. I could see that the neighbors who once avoided each other, tiptoeing around the tightrope of Karen's outbursts, had now locked arms for an acoustic rendition of "Cats Don't Care," which was perhaps even more ridiculous than her earlier song. We were treading on dangerous ground, where laughter became the glue that forged unexpected alliances. Who knew that a seemingly insignificant rock concert could create an electrifying synergy of acceptance and joy? As the last notes faded into the crisp summer night, I could see Karen smiling broader than I'd ever seen her. Yes, even when her precious cats won Best in Show at the neighborhood pet carnival. Beneath her popping blue blouse, which stood out vibrantly against the muted grass, she began to circulate through the crowd, tossing high fives like confetti. She wasn't just participating. She was relishing every moment, her commanding presence melting into something softer that held room for spontaneity and humor. "We need to do this more often," she exclaimed, and I couldn't help but chuckle at the irony. It was almost like she was claiming a newfound territory of acceptance, joining the ranks of the self-proclaimed rubberneckers of our street. And just like that, we had accidentally, joyfully rewritten the script for our neighborhood. As the tiniest embers of the bonfire glimmered like stars on earth, leaving behind warm hums of camaraderie, I marveled at what we had created that night, an effervescent reaction against the mundane. It wasn't just about flipping the script on Karen's entitled theatrics. We had unknotted the entangled threads of our community, spinning connections that sparked nostalgia and laughter. I couldn't help but envision more nights like these in our future, more moments weaving together the hilarity of life's unpredictability. Triumph, chaos, and humor danced together in a perfect ballet that would echo through our cherished neighborhood lore. What awaited us in the unfolding chapters of this whimsical existence? I found myself irresistibly excited to discover just how wild our neighborhood escapades could get. I watched in a mix of horror and amusement as Karen delegated responsibilities like a Broadway director. Her friends, a motley crew of mismatched sweaters and oversized sunglasses, began gathering driftwood and candles from their trunks, which they clearly thought would elevate Mr. Whiskers' send-off to a zen-like experience. "Can you believe it, Jake?" I mused, leaning against my porch railing while my buddy snapped away with his camera. "This woman is staging an Oscar-worthy performance over a cat. Where's the popcorn?" Jake snickered, absolutely loving every minute of my incredulity. I could practically hear the soap opera music playing in the background. Cue the dramatic close-up of the shovel sinking deep into the earth, while Karen narrated Mr. Whiskers' life story to anyone wearing a pulse. As if the universe wasn't done with its ridiculous surprises, Karen turned up the volume on her theatrics. "Now, if everyone could each say a few words about our dear Mr. Whiskers," she called out. A faux glorious expression spread across her face. The congregation murmured in agreement, but the only thing on my mind was the absurdity of it all. While Jake was practically wheezing with laughter, adjusting his camera lens to capture the finest angles of this ridiculousness. Surely the world had run out of bizarre events to entertain, right? Wrong. Between bouts of narrative tension, Karen had the gall to suggest that I play a commemorative tune as her loyal audience paid their respects. "Ethan, you have a guitar. Music soothes the soul." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My lawn may have been the backdrop for a personal vendetta against common sense, but my unwillingness to participate had magically transformed into a thought-provoking dilemma. "Did she just ask me for a live performance?" I whispered to Jake, a bewildered smile creeping onto my face. "What's next? A dramatic monologue in Shakespearean style?" For a fleeting moment it hit me. This was my chance for some revenge, musical revenge. I could turn this embarrassing spectacle into an unforgettable concert that would echo down the street and serve as a lovely reminder of the absurdity of entitled neighbors. I could sense the excitement building like a rock concert welling up deep inside me. "Jake," I said suddenly, the gears turning in my head, "we're going to throw the biggest rock concert right on Karen's lawn. We'll send Mr. Whiskers off in style." Jake's eyes sparkled at the unholy brilliance of my scheme. After a few strategic chats with the local musicians, who were mostly my friends and fellow music lovers, we all agreed to a one-night-only gig that we were dubbing the Rock and Roll Reprisal for Mr. Whiskers. Fueled by caffeine and righteous humor, we rallied neighbors to join the fun, knowing they too were miffed by Karen's antics. We arranged everything: lights, sound equipment, and of course, a grand memorial to accompany the stage for Mr. Whiskers, which the audience would get to witness in true rock concert fashion. It was not just a memorial, it was going to be a spectacle. I could almost hear the crowd cheering and chanting the name of every rock legend as we plotted in my living room. Fast forward to a week later, the sun shone bright, and the air was filled with a warm buzz of excitement, an ideal day for a concert. We set up my backyard area with lights strung high and sound systems spewing out rock anthems. News had traveled quickly, and the eclectic mix of my friends in the wider neighborhood gathered to welcome our audacious musical tribute. With a wink and a nod to my inner rock star, I took to the makeshift stage and opened the event. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pet Lovers Rock Concert, dedicated to the life and legend of Mr. Whiskers. The crowd exploded with laughter and cheers. Just as the bass kicked in, I glanced across the street to Karen's house. Here she was, standing on her porch, hands firmly planted on her hips, an expression of complete disbelief twisted across her face. It was outright poetic. I grinned at the sight of the very woman who had dragged her immensely dramatic performance to my lawn, now being completely upstaged by a mass of people swaying to electric guitar riffs in her front yard. It was a sweet taste of irony smeared thick with my favorite kind of humor. I strummed the first chord, signaling the beginning of a lively performance filled with witty lyrics poking fun at high-maintenance neighbors. Honestly, could life get any better than this? As the music took off, Jake captured the laughter, the faces lit by the lights, and the roaring crowd. Each note played reflected the absurdity of our new neighborhood rivalry. Not only did we create a new kind of memorial, but we also turned Karen's entitled antics into a symbol of our community coming together. A beautiful rebellion against the ridiculousness. How would this end? Would Karen retaliate? Would she come to join the festivities? Or would we witness her bold proclamation of, "You've gone too far"? Either way, I was reveling in the sweet chaos. The moment the first chords rang out, an electric energy surged through the crowd, and I felt the palpable thrill that only comes with performing live. I looked at the sea of familiar faces, all joining in this delightful chaos, cheering and swaying in rhythmic delight. As the music flowed, I couldn't help but think how utterly ridiculous this all seemed. 1 week ago, I was standing in bewilderment as Karen ordered me to play a somber tune for a cat. And now here I was, leading a raucous tribute to Mr. Whiskers instead. My friends flanked me on stage, silhouetted against twinkling fairy lights, getting lost in their own musical worlds. The crowd loved it, and with each guitar solo, I felt a little more liberated from the absurd constraints she had tried to impose on me. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. In the front row, Karen's loyal brigade gathered, a mix of her wine club members sporting either disapproving frowns or amused smirks. I spotted one of them raising a red solo cup, taking aim at my amplifiers as if they were her sworn enemies, while another frantically dialed her phone, likely phoning some authoritative figure to report the disturbance. A slight pang of anxiety washed over me. Would they actually try to end our epic rock concert? A quick glance at Jake revealed he was snapping photos with a giant grin plastered on his face, entirely reveling in the moment. "Just keep playing, Ethan. Let them know who really runs this neighborhood." He motioned dramatically, his proclamations echoing amidst the drum beats. Nothing could dim the atmosphere now. We were performers, giving life to rebellious joy and making a statement right there in front of Karen's manicured lawn. As the concert heated up, something absolutely glorious happened. The sound of exuberant cheers swelled beyond mere music. A spontaneous mosh pit erupted near the corner of the lawn, seemingly fueled by a mix of adrenaline and the absurdity of it all. Suddenly, one of my friends, wearing a Hawaiian shirt and oversized sunglasses, tossed a rubber chicken into the air, igniting an all-out rubber chicken war. It was as if the spirit of Mr. Whiskers had come alive in the form of bemused chaos. With each laugh that floated through the air, I could see the tension in Karen's posture inch toward the edge of disbelief and frustration. This was her prized territory, the land of the serious and the meticulously curated. And here I was, turning it into a carnival of offbeat festivity, just as I was beginning to truly embrace the sweet taste of musical rebellion. I felt an unfamiliar presence reach the fringes of the concert. It was Karen, yet she didn't come charging toward me like a furious bull. Instead, she stood at the threshold of her property, arms crossed tight and lips pursed, like an overly stern school principal watching a rock concert erupt in the schoolyard. "Excuse me," she hollered, her voice cracking through the heavy bass lines. "This is unacceptable." Although she undoubtedly intended to maintain power in this absurd drama, The sheer laughter rolling from the audience only made her more flustered, like adding fuel to an already blazing fire. Jake promptly put down his camera and shouted back, "Come on, Karen! Life's too short to be serious all the time. Let's celebrate Mr. Whiskers." And just like that, Jake had shifted the crowd's energy from adversarial to inclusive, turning the tide on Karen's expectation of dominance. What happened next was like something out of a sitcom. A neighbor from across the street, Mr. Thompson, an elderly gentleman with an impressive collection of Hawaiian shirts, decided it was time to embrace the moment and began doing an enthusiastic hula dance right at the apex of our tribute. With every swish of his arms and jig of his hips, he gathered a mini mob of neighbors to join his impromptu dance party. I burst into laughter mid-song, but my fingers never missed a beat. Karen gawked, at first stunned by the sheer levity of the spontaneous chaos unfolding before her, but soon enough, her lips twitched into a reluctant smirk. You could literally see the conflict churning inside her, like a mixing bowl of indignation and amusement. Had I created something so exuberant, it could thaw even her hardened exterior. The atmosphere shifted dramatically the moment I struck a chord leading into a classic anthem, and the crowd sang along, becoming the thunderous heartbeat of the concert. While I belted out lyrics about freedom and rebellion, I noticed something peculiar. Karen had moved a few steps down from her porch, inching closer to our gathering. She was still trying to maintain her air of authority, but the urge to join in on the fun seemed to bubble under her surface like an unshakable itch. The rock concert wasn't just about the absurd tribute to a cat. It grew into a night where community connections blossomed amidst the discord of the past. Could it be possible that, just perhaps, I was winning Karen over? Would the very leader of the entitlement brigade finally see the joy in embracing the unexpectedly silly? As the final notes of the song rang out, I decided to take a leap. In a bold maneuver, I leaned toward the mic and called out, "All right, everyone. Chunky cat owners, come to the stage." I gestured toward Karen, who wore the most unchanged expression of disbelief. A few neighbors cheered, urging her forward in good-natured fun. For a brief moment amid the laughter, I could see the corner of her lips twitch, as if she were battling the urge to smile. "Come on, Karen. Mr. Whiskers wouldn't want you to frown," I prompted, not allowing the rivalry to steal our joy. Would she take center stage in the spirit of fun? Or would this finally break the rift of tension settled over our neighborhood? The stage was set. Would the Queen of Entitlement take a leap of faith into the absurdity of it all? The crowd's cheers swelled into a whimsical frenzy, and my heart raced at the prospect of Karen actually joining us on stage. There she was, standing at the brink of her lawn like a deer caught in headlights. And oh, how I longed to see the sober queen of cat funerals take a leap into the absurdity of the moment. I waved my arms dramatically, beckoning her closer. "Come on, Karen. Embrace the fun. It's a concert, not a courtroom." My friends rallied behind me, some tossing up inflatable guitars they had stashed for just this occasion, and the laughter crescendoed into a delightful harmony. This was not just a petty rebellion. This was a call to find humanity in the absurdities that life threw our way. Like watching paint dry, I could practically see the wheels turning in Karen's head as she hovered on the threshold of her property. The unmistakable struggle between her desire to uphold status and the magnetic pull of this spontaneous, mirthful circus played out on her face. While her arms were crossed in defiance, her lips twitched, betraying the tiny flicker of amusement hidden beneath her stern facade. But who could blame her? Between our riotous celebration and the dignified tribute she had envisioned, the gulf between our worlds seemed laughably vast yet surmountable. She stood there, resolutely planted like a flag on disputed territory, while the jovial dance party continued to gain momentum, drawing her closer. Jake, sensing the dramatic weight of the moment, decided to seize the opportunity. "Hey, Karen, we'll even dedicate this next song to Mr. Whiskers just for you," he hollered, as if extending an olive branch or perhaps a rubber chicken of community spirit. More than anything, I wished to see her join in, perhaps even prove that she could put her high-waisted trousers aside for a fleeting wildness. Against the bass-heavy backdrop of the music, I nodded toward my bandmates as they prepared to launch into an anthem that burst with energy and exuberance. This was the quintessential moment of rebellion. It wasn't merely a rock concert, It was a full-on unconsidered dance in defiance of expectations. Suddenly, a wave of enthusiasm swept across the lawn, prompting the neighbors to whip out their phones, creating a makeshift audience from the ranks of previously apathetic residents. The rhythm of our rocking escapade resonated not just through the speakers, but even out into the corners of the neighborhood. To my astonishment, even young kids who had wound up giggling at the side began to stomp their feet to the beat, transforming the lawn into a pulsing mini-festival. As the elder Mr. Thompson continued to swing his hips in rhythmic delight, a couple of Karen's wine club members, previously stormy-faced, dwindled under pressure from rippling laughter and began to laugh. Yes, laugh, as they loosened their wine glasses like tethered balloons finally freed from their strings. And then, with an unexpected flourish, Karen stepped forward. I could hardly believe my eyes as she crossed the threshold of her meticulously maintained lawn, looking equal parts horrified and intrigued, her bobbed hair bouncing slightly with every step. For a fleeting moment, it felt like a scene from a comedy where the uptight antagonist finally embraces her bright, chaotic destiny. Just as I was convinced my absurd dreams had heralded her case of contagious unease, Karen unwrapped her arms from their tight embrace, revealing a half-hearted attempt to dance. Admittedly, it resembled a stunted little jig, a hybrid between an awkward shuffle and the kind of sway that makes you question if the person is okay. But hey, it was a brave first step into the world of joy, wasn't it? As the chorus of our anthem reached a frenzied peak, it was as if time stood still. Everyone in the crowd slowed down their moving and began to chant, "Karen! Karen! Karen!" cheering her on in what could very well be a grassroots political campaign for a more fun-loving neighborhood. It was utterly ludicrous, but somehow beautiful to witness. I could see the stubborn walls she'd built around herself shift slightly and loosen as the crowd enveloped her in pure enthusiasm. She wasn't just a neighbor anymore. She was our reluctant hero, unwittingly leaping into the whirlpool of chaos and camaraderie. With the wacky implications of a rubber chicken still bouncing about, somehow this moment was transforming her from the uptight Karen into just Karen, a fellow participant in our joyous uprising. The song drew its triumphant close, but Karen appeared to have seized the magic of the moment, just as the final notes reverberated throughout the yard. All right, you win," she exclaimed, though there was a hint of reluctance in her voice. The crowd erupted into applause, cheering on her shift from disdainful overseer to celebrant of absurdity. In this heart-thumping culmination, I realized I had done more than just orchestrate a concert. I had united the neighborhood under the whimsical banner of fun. I leaned back into the mic, laughing with glee, and proclaimed, "And here we thought Mr. Whiskers was just a cat. Turns out he's our gracious guide into the world of rock and roll." With Karen now a part of our raucous gathering, I couldn't help but feel a tingle of anticipation. Perhaps this was the beginning of a bizarre yet delightful era in our neighborhood. Would we all now embrace this newfound camaraderie? Would Karen put away her entitlement cape and join us for future celebrations? Yet, as I looked over the faces of our neighbors, each filled with laughter and surprises, I realized the night was just beginning. What other unexpected adventures awaited us in this colorful tapestry of community life? The vibe on that lawn shifted dramatically, transforming from a battleground of passive-aggressive territorial disputes to a vibrant meadow of laughter and rock and roll energy. Karen stood among us, albeit cautiously, as if testing the water of the craziness surrounding her. I watched in awe as she swayed awkwardly, caught between her innate stiff demeanor and the infectious rhythm pulsing through the earth beneath her feet. It was like watching a turtle thrill at the brink of a wild waterslide. Part of her desperately wanted to leap in, but the rest was terrified of the implications of such fun. Yet, as the night wore on, those quirky movements of hers began to throb with an unusual life of their own, and with every offbeat twirl, my faith in her transformation bloomed a little brighter. Just when I thought Karen might dissolve back into her commandingly composed bubble, Jake, the ever-ready comic relief, improvised an encore to our unfolding scene. Grabbing an inflatable guitar, he strummed exaggeratedly while spinning in circles. "Let's get this party started, Karen," he yelled over the upbeat music, his enthusiasm contagious. In a delightful move, He flung a second inflatable guitar her way, like a gladiator tossing his weapon to a conqueror. Surprisingly, she caught it, sort of. The inflatable weapon rolled awkwardly out of her grasp, but in that moment, even Karen couldn't stifle a smile that danced audaciously at the corners of her mouth. The other neighbors erupted into cheers, and I could see the facade peeling away like paint on a soggy wall. I was witnessing a glorious metamorphosis of attitude. With the atmosphere thickening into a kaleidoscope of jubilation, the sound of laughter and guitar riffs created a symphony of pure joy. I could feel the shift in energy throughout the crowd. People who had once tiptoed around Karen, weary of her outbursts or judgmental glares, now united in an unexpected wave of affinity. Even Mr. Thompson, who often mowed his lawn as if it were an Olympic event, let loose a belly laugh that echoed through the previous tension. It became clear that the true spirit of community thrived not in adherence to societal protocols, but in the chaotic celebration of life, even if that celebration involved boisterous rock concerts on lawns previously deemed sacred. Was this wild evening turning the page of our neighborhood's stale script, readying it for an epic sequel? As the night wore on, and the music climaxed with brilliantly arranged riffs, sparks of fireworks crackled above, painting vibrant displays against the darkening sky. It was then that I dimly registered the line of Karen's wine club members, now transforming from judgmental spectators into a chorus of merriment. It seemed my humble, rebellious rock concert was not just an affront to her snobbish tone, but a movement that unified our quirky patch of land. Their glasses, once gripped tightly in disdain, were raised in raucous toast to the absurdity of it all. I couldn't stifle a laugh as one of the more snooty club members spilled a little on herself, only to dissolve into giggles and blushing cheeks. Could this whole evening be the triumph of chaos over uptight sensibilities? Amidst this jubilant chaos, I spotted an unmistakably relaxed twinkle in Karen's eye now, one that replaced her usual irritated glare with something genuine and inviting. There she stood with the inflatable guitar slung around her shoulder, a surprising trophy of camaraderie, and finally declaring her allegiance to fun. Jake wasted no time, nudging me and nodding toward her. "Dude, I think she's about to shred it with us." With that, Karen took a hesitant but brave step onto a makeshift stage that had formed from the old picnic table we usually used for barbecues. In that divine moment, I decided we should give her the spotlight she never knew she desperately needed. Catching my breath as the crowd held theirs, I raised the mic once more. "All right, everyone, let's give it up for our newest rock star, Karen." The response was overwhelming. Cheers erupted, a chorus of well-meaning lunatics rallying beneath their self-appointed queen of the grassy sanctuary. Karen's posture, once punctuated by tension, now shimmered with something almost unrecognizable: excitement. She began to strum the inflatable guitar with reckless abandon, albeit in a delightfully offbeat manner. But who cared? The laughter that followed echoed through the night like a celebration of life, a delightful acceptance of the unconventional, embracing our differences as our greatest strength. As musically mediocre and fabulously absurd as that moment was, I sensed something more profound, a growing sense of community. Like threads weaving through our neighborhood fabric, brightly colored and beautifully messy. In this spontaneous concert, laughter broke down walls, inviting characters from all walks of life to leap together into the nonsense of joy. Would this joyful chaos serve to thaw the freezing chill of entitlement? Would Karen find not just a new lease on fun, but a rekindling of connection with us all? I hardly had time to ponder before my bandmates rallied around me, cranking up the guitars for a raucous farewell anthem. What else were we capable of together? I couldn't wait to find out. The jam session echoed with heart and hilarity, leaving me brimming with anticipation for whatever new escapades awaited our whimsical neighborhood rebellion. Would we finally pull Karen out of her polished shell to embrace the joyous absurdity that lay beyond our doorsteps? As the final notes reverberated into the night air, igniting the quiet spaces of our ordinary lives, I knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning of our delicious chaos. Thanks for tuning into this insane entitled Karen story. If you're craving more wild Karen showdowns, check out our video on the right. Or if you trust YouTube's instincts, pick the one on the left. Whichever you choose, brace yourself. there's plenty more meltdown madness where today's story came from.